Greetings, it's July 16th and new heat detections have come out in the wee hours of the morning. We're looking at a screen of fire detections over the last 24 hours. Then when we roll into the most recent 12 hours, there's a lot fewer new infrared. Most of these new heat detections were found within existing fire perimeters. The evenings are a little cooler, the wind dies down a little bit, and there is less activity within the fire perimeters. However, there have been some hotspots showing up outside perimeters. We'll take a look at those now. But first, let's jump to east of Okanagan Falls, southeast of Skaha Lake. We're looking at new heat detections. Most of these are on the northern flank and northeastern and eastern flank of this fire. The eastern flank is going up the hill towards the Okanagan Plateau. Then when we roll into all the infrared for the last 24 hours, we can see that new hotspots are falling more or less within the existing perimeter. They're kind of right at the edge. Now, we may be seeing part of a control strategy to eliminate fuel in anticipation of stronger winds later in the day. So if you're in this area, go to the BC Wildfire link in the description below. Check out the wildfire situation for this fire, and you'll find out more information on what they're doing on the ground and what they're anticipating. Now we're moving northwest. We're up in the Ashcroft, Cache Creek area. We're looking at a fire that's east of Ashcroft, east of Barnes Lake. It's moved up the hillside, and when we look at the latest infrared, we can see these diagonal, almost control pattern signatures. We're looking at the latest heat detections. Then when we look at what's happened in the last 24 hours, we can see that that fire perimeter is a fair bit to the west. So these new infrared indications may be a control strategy in anticipation of further movement eastward. We can see that diagonal line running from the left-hand side of the screen down to the bottom center of the screen. That's a right-of-way for infrastructure, and we watched the approach in previous videos towards that line, and now it's crossed that with these diagonal patterns of heat detection. It would appear that the area of engagement on this fire on the eastern flank has increased. Jumping to windy, we can see that there is an anticipation of increased gusts in the afternoon up to 38 kilometers an hour. There could be cloud cover, so a little bit cooler perhaps, but jumping to the ECM model, we're looking at significant gusts in the afternoon coming from the southwest, blowing to the northeast. So if you are north or east of this fire zone, you want to be prepared and have a plan. What are your access routes? What are the vegetation and terrain between you and the fire line? So again, check with the BC Wildfire link, find out if there's evacuation alerts and orders and what they're anticipating. We're jumping further north up Highway 97 on the Caribou Highway. We're looking at the Flat Lake area. This is adjacent to Highway 97 and Green Lake. It's about 6 or 7 kilometers west of the highway. We can see that there's no new infrared in the chasm location. That's a good sign. And the new indications on the Flat Lake fire are to the south, and they're in these horizontal control pattern signatures. And when we turn on the heat detection for the previous 24 hours, there we can see chasm pop up. That's where the fire zone is there. It's to the south. And we can see this perimeter around the Flat Lake area. If we go to windy, on the ECM model, we can see that, yes, there are gusts anticipated from the northwest, but then the wind shifts around noon and starts coming from the south and the southwest. Looking at the icon model, winds are anticipated from the west, but then there's a wind shift and it starts coming from the south. This variable wind speed and direction could be part of cloud activity that's rolling overhead. So again, go to BC Wildfire, find out what they're anticipating, especially if you're to the northeast or to the east of this fire zone. And it looks like if you're to the southeast as well, you want to consider what actions they're taking on the ground. There's one more site that caught my attention. This is on the west side of the Columbia River. We're northwest of Castlegart, and you'll see a cluster there. And it has shown up as new infrared in the last 12 hours. So there is activity going on there. And if we roll into a map of the southern interior of British Columbia, these are all the heat detections that have occurred over the last 24 hours. And now we're looking at just the new infrared that's been generated, significantly less. That's a good sign. Things have calmed down a little bit overnight. Most of these heat detections fall within existing perimeters, like the one up at Pennask on the Okanagan Connector, as well as the heat detections in the Shuswap and the ones to the north of Nelson. They all fall within the existing prior 24-hour perimeters. And if we zoom out and look at the province, other than a few spots up at Omanika near Chase Provincial Park, there's fewer new hotspots being indicated. Now we're rolling into a screen showing the existing fires and where there is fire occurring, and you can see that there's a lot of activity out there, but in the last 6 hours not a lot of new hotspots were generated. That's a good sign. I think that's a combination of easing wind patterns in the evening and the efforts of wildfire crews to kind of stamp these out and eliminate fuel while they have the opportunity. So today we'll be watching for activity around the Flat Lake fire to the east, to the northeast, and potentially to the southeast, with those new infrared being displayed in that horizontal pattern. Also, we're looking for activity to the east of the fire up the hill at Ashcroft, to the east of Barnes Lake. There could be a few clouds rolling overhead, causing changes in wind direction and increased gusts throughout the day. So it really doesn't matter what fire zone you're in. Consider where the fire line is, what direction the wind is anticipated to be blowing, what's the vegetation and the terrain between you and the fire line. Is it open areas where fire can move quite quickly? And check with BC Wildfire and DRIVEBC. Find out what the best access routes are and what their plans are on the ground and the evacuation alerts and orders. That's very important. Thank you very much for watching. So far, some good news. Less new infrared at 2 o'clock in the morning, but wind gusts tomorrow. So keep your nose to the breeze.